Your circle will change as you accomplish your goals and level up. Everybody can't go.
And we live. I keep telling y'all, I'm gonna get that clapper one day. One week, y'all are gonna be surprised. Happy Wednesday and welcome to another Everybody Can't Go Convo. Today we have another special guest. I'm always bringing y'all heat, always bringing y'all fire. Today we have something special again. Shout out to the men in our lives and the men who are watching. Today I have with us Shadrack Bellamy, the Mudhut's a millionaire and creator of the Diamond Cut Man, where Shadrack helps men who have experienced trauma to heal and achieve their goals. So, warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Of course, of course. So let's go ahead and get it kicked off. Introduce yourself to us. Let us know about your brand and some of the things that you have coming up in your business.
Certainly. Sadrack Belony. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 3. I am an avid runner, I guess you could say. Have a few marathons under the belt. I'm a mountain climber. I climb Mount Kilimanjaro. But more importantly, I'm passionate about helping men. And I started the Diamond Cut Man program as well as the Men Talk program, really to help men who's experienced trauma to kind of open up and heal, especially the trauma of growing up without a father. Also because most men, we don't really talk about what we go through. We hold it up inside and walk around with a smile on our face, yet carrying the burdens of the world on our shoulders. So one of the things I'm really passionate about is really trying to change the narrative of what it means to be manly and what it means to be a healed and complete man. So that's a little something about me.
Cool. That's what's up. And if you guys don't get any indication from what he just walked us through with that high overview, that is exactly why I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have you on. I feel like as a woman, there's only so much that I can do in terms of with the audience. You know, I can speak to men all I want to, but like guys need to hear from other guys. Men need to hear from other men who have grown through their own trauma, who have healed over time, who have gone on their own growth journey, because there are just some things that I feel that they just aren't unisex in the personal development and in the growth game. There is a certain path of separation with what us women need as we're healing and as we're growing, and what men need. So as we move into it some more, I know that you recently spoke to a men's huddle on the courage to climb, even though I wasn't invited because I'm not a man, but avid supporter of you, your programming, and your purpose and cause. So with that Courage to Climb event, what inspired your message for that event?
That's a very good question. So the Courage to Climb event was an event for all men at the Christian Culture Center, put together by the International Christian Brotherhood, also known as ICB. So I was invited to speak and just talk through my journey of when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and in Tanzania. But what I did was kind of speak through, because we look at mountains as that physical struggle they have to do to climb. But what I did was compare it. It was two, because for me, actually, I'll take it back. Mount Kilimanjaro was actually the second hardest climb I ever done. It was the second hardest climb. The hardest climb I've ever done was what I went through mentally, was what I went through with the trauma, what I went through with growing up in a mud hut in Haiti, where it felt like despite leaving Haiti and coming to the US and have multiple opportunities, I never climbed out of that mud hut. So Mount Kilimanjaro was 19,341 feet. The mud hut was 12 feet. And I had to get out of that 12 feet mindset to be able to climb that physical 19,000 feet. And that 12 feet mindset, that 12 feet mud hut mindset was the fact that I was told I was a mistake my whole life. And although I got over it, I realized I never healed from it because I never really truly valued myself the way I should have. Although I was able to go to school, was able to get a degree, was able to work at some of the most prestigious firms in corporate America, I still never valued my work the way I valued others' work. Still felt like others' work was better than mine, even though I was always getting promoted. I was always getting complimented for my work, but I was stuck in that 12-foot mud hut. And I had to literally heal from that in order to be able to climb that physical mountain. So a lot of us brothers, there's a lot of things that happened to us in our past that we may have gotten over but never healed from, and not realizing why we're not able to fully function or process. One of the conversations I have with my friends is that it's so hard to be a good man because we carry so much burdens on our shoulders. We carry so much pain. The battle of being a good husband, a good father, a provider, a friend, um, carrying all that weight and then pretending like everything is fine when we ask us if everything's okay. So there's so much climbing that us men have to do, not just physically but mentally. And that's one of the things that I expressed the most during that huddle with the men. And a lot of the men resonated with it. That's like, hey, fellas, even if you've never climbed a physical mountain, there's so much emotional mountains in your life that you need to climb or need to start climbing, that if you don't, it's going to impact not just your life, but it's going to impact your children. It's going to impact everything you do. So that was kind of a high level synopsis of the conversation that we had on the 22nd for the Courage to Climb event.
Cool, cool. So I got my little insider info. I've heard you speaking over the past year or so, just about some of the different events and things that have been a part of your Mudhut to Millionaire movement, the creation of the Diamond Cut Man program, and you growing and sharing your passion for helping other men. And just the more I learn about you and the ways that you have overcome some of the challenges that you've had in the past, it's super inspirational. Just very like, I'm always like, when I first met you, it's like, oh, Shad is so awesome. Like, he's so bomb. And then as you began to talk about some of those challenges, I'm like, wow, like, there was so much more work put into you being the you that I meet today or I see today, that
Mm-hmm.
all of those things that are behind the surface, below the surface, that you're talking about. It wasn't until you started to share and talked about some of these different things that I'm like, you know what? Like you just said, it is hard to be a good man, to be a good husband, to be a good father, and to be that whole healthy individual. Because the same way that there were all of those things to overcome so that you could emerge triumphant, all of that work and everything, it's like I'm like, okay, so it's not just burying the pain. Some of the good things resulting from that are kind of, hidden inside, and people on the outside aren't able to see it and experience it until you are to that level of healing where you're able to be open with all of those different aspects. So I can definitely say, like, thank you for being obedient, for being that type of vessel, to be able to know that it's not just like, oh yeah, Shad is bomb, his life is perfect, versus it's like, no, this was work. And it's not just the work that you thought. It was work and then more work and then more work to get to what you see today. So that's
And to be
really
honest, excuse me, and to be honest, it's continual work. It's continual work because even the getting over versus healing part, I didn't really figure that out until the May of this past May. It is a continued amount of work, and if you don't make it, if it's not a conscious effort on your part to do that work, you can easily get lost in society and get lost in the day to day grind and get lost in life. And what end up happening is your escape ends up being things that may not be healthy. It may not end up being alcohol. It may not end up being drugs. It may end up being burst of anger. Even if you don't go to those things and you just balled everything up inside, it may be a burst of anger over something very innocent. Or if you are able to hold in all your emotions and not burst into anger, then it may be your health. It may be the high blood pressure. It may be the diabetes. It may be all of these things that if you're not consistently working, it's not going to be a one-time thing. But yes, if you're not consistently working at becoming who you should be and becoming that free man who's not boxed in by what society say you are, then if you're not doing that work, then the opposite of that is a unhealthy or a very high functioning brokenness of a man, where everyone on the outside sees you as smiling and everything, but on the inside you're suffering. And I'm only speaking from what I went through and from what I'm speaking to other men and what they've gone through. That high functioning brokenness is something that's real.
Now that's something to sit on. High functioning brokenness. Wow. That was a mic drop for me. Because it's so easy to, especially when you're striving for the impossible perfection, to bury yourself in work, to not address the inner work that needs to be done. And that was a good way to just package that all up into thinking about like, okay, how actually are you dealing with those emotions, those traumas, those things that it may not be as severe as a trauma, but things that are bothering you. What are you doing with those feelings? Are you being constructive? And a lot of times around here, we talk about, setting up boundaries. We talk about the self-care. We talk about all of the things that that we need to do to be a healthy, whole individual before you get to that point where it's like, no, everybody can't go, including self, and what it takes to be able to work through those challenges and feelings in a healthy way. Because, whether you ignore it or not, the feelings will still be there. What we do with them is a choice. And we are responsible for how we deal with those things. And also, ultimately, we're also responsible for how those things manifest in our lives, depending on whether or not we work through those emotions in that mental state in a healthy way, or if we seek out coaching, counseling, or receive some type of wise counsel on how to, if we don't know how to. So I love that you've entered into this coaching space so that you're one of those in the bucket of wise counsel, that you're a safe space and a good place to go to learn how to work through some of those things.
Absolutely. And that word safe space is so key. So can I address your female listeners for a second?
Please do.
Because ladies, for a man, as much as we are so tough and we are strong and we carry the world on our shoulder, we're very sensitive. And what I mean by that is that if you don't create a safe space for us to be able to open up and talk to you about the things we're going through, or if we have opened up and you throw it in our face even once, we're gonna step back, and it's likely gonna take a very long time for us to come back and be willing to open up again. Having a safe space at home, having a safe space, and doesn't have to be just your spouse. If you have a brother, if you have a father, if you have a cousin, if you have any male that you interact with, try to create a safe space for them to be able to open up to you to speak. Because once we feel like if anything we say is going to be thrown back in our face, or we can't trust, or the one time we were vulnerable, it was just tossed back at us, then we're just going to shut down, not just with you, but most likely with everyone else. Because while we don't share our emotions externally, we do share it internally, and we do let it build up, and we do end up just, if this person treats us that way, then everybody else is going to do the same. So ladies, other friends, other brothers, like for the most part, a safe space, just like you said, Jessi, is so, so important. Because that's something that we don't have in society, and it's something that we need at home and we need within personal relationships.
That's real. That's real. All right, ladies, take these notes. And don't forget, I believe we've heard this 2 or 3 other times in previous episodes. So I'm not making it up. I'm just bringing you all the hashtag husband and father goals to the podcast, and they are telling you straight from their mouths. So that is definitely advice that is to be heeded to. In order to help us to be a part of a positive growth environment, and also that, like you said, can help you with relationships across the board. So I really appreciate that. So, from growing up in a mud hut in Haiti to climbing Mount Kilimanjaro to coaching men through their trauma and accomplishing their goals, what inspired you to begin coaching other men to heal and start achieving their goals? Was there any one particular thing, or like the culmination of just your journey in itself?
The culmination of my journey, going through everything I went through, I apologize. Going through everything I went through, I always felt like I had to do it on my own. And I felt like I never had someone there to go to speak to. Um, from leaving Haiti to come to the United States, not speaking the language, going through school where it felt like I had no friends and barely knew what I was doing. It's just that every major milestone in my life, I always felt like I had to do it alone. What When that started to change was when my wife Naomi was pregnant with my son, and I realized like, okay, I'm about to be a father who grew up with a fatherless past. I'm about to give this boy who's going to carry my last name an identity that I never had. So that's when I realized, okay, something has to change. And I had the courage to reach out to a friend of mine's, and he was saying like, well, the church you attend, they do have a men's group called the International Christian Brotherhood. Why don't you reach out to them? And I happened to reach out to them and had a conversation. And that's another thing, like being able to find someone who understood that men don't easily reach out for help and was willing to sit down and listen and pour back into me. And I think that made all the difference. Had he not created that safe space, and that's Dr. Honorio of Christian Cultural Center, had he not created that safe space for me to come and speak to him, if he was just like going to just say, look, oh, man, you just need to man up, I would have just recused back into myself and tried to figure out on my own. But he was willing to be open and poured into me. I ended up joining that organization, and it was an organization of nothing but men who were looking to grow. And that really started off my journey of personal development. And that started off my journey of, okay, I found a community who could pour it into me, and I was able to kind of get over a little bit of what I was, like I said, get over versus being healed. I got over what I was going through and saw that I wasn't just, the mistake that I was always being called, that I was called by God, that before he knew me, before I was informed in the womb, he already had plans for me. And even though my parents didn't want me, God did. So that started that journey. And then by the time, fast forward to where I am now, and like, okay, I was able to go through all this trauma. I was able to, what society would call me successful now. But I'm like, I want to be what I never had grown up to other men. I want to be that someone who's willing to listen. I want to be someone to pour back into them. I want to create a community where other men could come in and find strength and vulnerability, because those two words usually don't come together. When we hear strength, it's more about just either physical strength or being tough enough not to cry. But it's like, no, I learned that there is strength in vulnerability. There is strength in opening up. There is strength in talking to someone. And there's a lot of pain that we carry that we don't have to carry. So full circle into now, I'm like, you know what? I want to be for all these brothers what I never had growing up. That creating that community of growth, a community of fellowship, a community where, listen, you don't have to go through what you're going through alone. You could grow through it with a group of men who will support you.
That's super dope. So, as far as like the moving from getting over it to healing, what
Mhm.
did the healing part look like for you over the years and up until recent months? What did that look like doing the actual healing part?
So a lot of forgiveness, forgiveness of those who did hurt me, forgiveness of those who not only physically but emotionally and mentally hurt me, but also forgiveness of self. Because I carried a lot of, okay, you're not good enough. And for years I realized I carried that whole, when Dr. Eric Thomas said, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll be successful. In my mind, the best revenge was massive success. So I'm like, okay, everyone who said I was a mistake, that I wasn't good enough, I'm going to be massively success. But that was me operating in my trauma.
Mm.
The healing looked like talking through and trying to learn, okay, who are you? Why do you think the way you think? Taking the assessment and understanding how I operate naturally and what caused me to operate that way. And then learning that, okay, you're literally, if you go back to who's Sadrack as a child before that trauma happened to him? Like, was he really someone who um, throughout the years who's just, so cold and holding everything in and not really trying to push? Or is he actually someone who was happy and strong and whatnot? So that healing process looked like a lot of conversations with a lot of people who actually knew what brokenness looked like. Conversations with people who understood that, okay, I see how you're operating, but there's something inside of you that is still not healed yet. Being in a community with you and the rest of the mastermind folks, and having those coaches who spotted me from a mile away that, okay, you're hiding something. And it's eventually, the culminating of it in May was having a conversation with ET where he was saying that, like, listen, a lot of you are operating where you think it's your natural you, but it's really you, the that protective mechanism that you have created for that child that was hurt, and you're operating in that still as an adult. And I had to really stop and really think about it, like, okay, yes, based on your assessment, you're a pilot, but that pilot, and for those who don't understand the flight attendants, pilot, etc., you could reach out to Jess. She could definitely give you the assessment. But I'm like, am I a pilot because I always wanted to be a pilot? And I realized, like, no, you became a pilot or someone who executed a high level because so many people said you weren't going to be nothing grown up.
Mm.
And it's really like, oh, like, you're actually probably more of a flight attendant, but your protective mechanism was that pilot is that to execute. Everyone who says that you're a mistake, you're not going to make it. Everyone who made fun of you and laughed at you, you're going to show them by being massively successful. Like, no, that's all trauma that's operating. And I remember a conversation I had with someone when I said that I used everything bad that happened in my life as fuel to get to where I am today. But what happens when you get to the point where there's nothing more bad happening anymore? Like, how many times am I going to really use the pain as fuel? Because, once I got promoted as high as I can within my organizations, once I had a stable home now, I had a wife, I had children, I had all that stuff. I'm like, okay, you have nothing else bad going on in your life. Why are you still using that as fuel? So having all of those conversations with myself and listening to others and allowing myself to get poured into is what really started that healing process. And honestly, last month in May, when we were speaking with Ian, that I broke down because I'm like, wow, I knew I got over it, but I never really healed from everything I went through until now. Like, stop operating in pain and operate in joy. Like, you don't have to hold on to what happened to you in the past. How can you really be blessed with the future if both your hands are still holding on to what happened to you before? It's hard to receive like this. And I had to learn that this is how you receive. So I had to learn, okay, let me open up my heart. Let me open up my life. Let me let go of the things that were, because they're not serving me anymore. I can't use the pain as fuel anymore. But now that what's funny enough, once I did that, so many other opportunities opened up. That was the craziest part. Once I did that is when I got the opportunity to speak with the Courage to Climb event. Once I did that, I got another job offer that happened not too long. Like, it's crazy. Like, once you let go, now you can receive the blessings that are just waiting for you to open it up. But that was something that yeah, it was literally understanding why I operate the way I operate. Is it really who I am, or is it really that little child that I had to protect inside of me? I think I want to be.
No, you're good. That was so powerful. And that like throughout all of the pointers that you gave in there, one of the things that stuck out to me was community. Because oftentimes, especially if you're like a high achiever or an overachiever, it's easy to like recluse in, even unintentionally, because it's easier to do it by myself, or I'll just do it myself because other people aren't going to do it right, or other folks are going to move too slow, or they'll ask a bunch of questions and I don't have time for that. And so it becomes this like never ending cycle of just taking on all of these things, not like you said, opening up your hands, letting some of those things go in terms of tasks, in terms of emotions, in terms of situations, and just how when you're recluse so inward that you're holding on to things emotionally, but not realizing you're also holding on to every task, every item. And you're just like, okay, like, oh no, I can still, I've got it. And it's like, you're holding a million things and not realizing that there are other people in your midst who want to help it's their blessing to help. And you get tired, you feel tired, and it's like, well, no one's helping. And it's like, well, are you letting them? Are you
Yeah.
leaning on that community?
Yeah. No one's helping because I'm afraid that if I let you help me, you're gonna let me down like other people let me down in the past. So I'm gonna do it myself.
Mhm.
And I remember, oh, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm still working on this part. I'm still, like I said, we're healing and growing. I'm
Mhm.
still trying to let other people bless me. I have no problem with spending on my family, friends. I will give the shirt off my back, but it's still a little uncomfortable receiving and allowing people the opportunity to bless me. And someone once told me that it's selfish of you to bless so many people, yet you don't let them bless you. And I'm working on it. But like you
Mhm.
said, yeah, we want to hold everything to ourselves, but it's really because of all the trauma that happened to us. It's causing, okay, I'm not gonna trust nobody else. I'm gonna trust me. But like you said, everybody can't go, including your old self. Your old self cannot go into the new version of you or the goal you're trying to achieve or the future you're trying to create when you're holding on that task and everybody who's sitting there who has the ability to bless you and you're holding on to it, then okay, you're just gonna stay here with your old self and not really grow. Something that happened to me on top of Kilimanjaro, when we got to about the whole mountain is 19,000 feet. At about 17,000 feet, I didn't experience altitude sickness my entire climb until I got that high. And I remember one of the guides came up to me and was like, "Hey, you don't look too well. Give me your book bag." And I'm like, "No, I've made it this high up with it on. I'm gonna finish my climb all day by myself, like Kevin Hart or something like that." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm not giving it to you. Like I've gotten this far with it." And he's like, "At 17,000 feet, it's not a question. It's no, give me your book bag." And I finally decided to take it off and hand it to him. And I realized, wow, you were carrying that weight all along and all you had to do was accept the help because that made all the difference. And I truly believe had I not given him my backpack, I wouldn't have made it to the top. So same way you were just saying, like where you're trying to hold on to everything. If you're not allowing others who want to help you, who are able to help you, who have the skill, talents, and abilities to help you, and you're trying to keep it to yourself, that's gonna stunt your growth to where you really want to go. Because had I not handed him my backpack and continued to follow his lead, I would not have made it to the top of Africa's rooftop on top of Kilimanjaro. When I'm telling you, it was nothing but myself, snow, and the clouds and the sun. It was the most. I'll send you the pictures if you want to share with your audience. Most amazing scene I've ever had. But literally, like Jessi just said, if you're holding to everything on, it's hard for you. You could go fast by yourself, but you're not going to go far. You can only go far with the community. You can only go far with others and being willing to trust them and let them do it. Not the way you would have done it, because they probably would do it a different way, but probably better than you expected.
Mm. That's good. That was very powerful. And yes, I will get those pictures for you guys. I've gotten to see them already. So we will make sure that we share them with you as well, as our listeners and audience. The so when you were talking about like having that community and everything, what gave you like the courage to trust to trust the basically trust the community when you started to go into other communities, your men's community that you were a part of right before you were about to have your first son, when you entered into like the mastermind community, when you surrendered to the trust of your guide when you were climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, what was going through your head at the time when you allowed like that relinquish of control to allow help from the outside coming in? What were some of the things that you were thinking about that caused you to kind of like okay, I'm gonna take this leap of faith here?
It's literally I cannot go further by myself anymore. I
Hmm.
can't go further by myself. For the men's community when my son was born, it was a fear of repeating, not even repeating, as if I've never seen a healthy home with a husband and a wife. I've never seen experience having a father figure to be with me and to raise me and all that stuff. I've never seen what a healthy household looked like because I was always home. But my mother, did the best she could, working 3, 4 jobs. I was always home alone. So it was okay. I'm about to go into a new season that I have no experience and no knowledge and no point of reference to even accomplish. So as much as I could try to wing it and figure it out on my own, I'm told there is help, and I'll look into it. And the other thing too is not only look into it, but be willing to trust the source of the information and who I'm going to be going into. I had for going into ICB when my son was born, I think I must have had probably 5, 6, or 7 conversations with the director there before I decided to join. And he's shown himself to someone that I could trust, and to be able to believe that he'll lead me to where it is I need to go, even though I don't even know the pathway to get there yet. Same thing with joining the mastermind community. I knew I reached a point in my life where everybody says that I'm successful, but I'm like, no, not this is not success, because there's a lot I would love to be able to find a struggling family and pay for the rent for the whole year without them knowing who did it. So I feel like I'm not in the success realm that I want to be, but I see a man who's doing that. I see Dr. Eric Thomas. I see E.T. the hip hop preacher, who's blessing kids and taking them to Dubai and taking them to the Super Bowl and helping families, and like it's nothing. So I'm like, okay, I'm I've been listening to E for years. So when he offered the mastermind, it was almost a no brainer, because I'm like, wait, I've been saying all year I need growth. I want to find growth, and then this happens. So it's always like, which we've heard from Beyonce all the time: speak what you seek until you see what you've said. So I kept saying in my mind, I need to find with my son, I need to find a better community to learn what manhood is. With the mastermind, I need to find, I need to be around people who are more successful than me in order for me to grow and become more successful. So it's having that desire for more, and then speaking it, and then seeking it. And once you find it, doing your research to make sure that it is some place of integrity and it's a place where you could actually grow. So for brothers out there who are so accustomed to doing things on your own, holding it in, and when you're out with your friends, it's merely just a way to release the stress that you're dealing with. Find a community that is going to help you deal with what's inside that nobody knows about. There are certain things that I was dealing with that nobody knew about. Like, nobody knew about I've ever was abused as a child. Nobody knew about the verbal abuse that I went through that caused me to have zero, like very, very low self-esteem growing up. Like, nobody knows about these things, but on the outside, they knew Sadrack was always laughing. He's always funny, always cracking jokes, and will always be there for whoever needs him. I was being what I never had. So if you are a brother, or any of the audience, not just brothers, but anybody who's out there, and you have a need that you haven't expressed, start seeking and start looking into it, because change is not going to happen if you just stay where you're at. So for me, it was okay. This is where I want to go. This is where I need to be. I don't know how to get there. Let me start looking to see, how do I start to move towards that end piece. And that's how I got into ICB. That's how I got to the mastermind, and that's what I'm trying to do now with open community for men as well.
That's amazing. I love the thought process that you walked us through on how you arrived at finding wise counsel, and highlighting that differentiation, because sometimes when we're looking for a community, looking for a place, we skip that part of the work of basically, like you said, vetting to make sure that these folks that you are listening to are wise counsel, making sure that they do have your best interest at heart, making sure that the growth that you truly desire is also what they desire for you and what they will help you get to, versus kind of like just dangling that proverbial carrot of like, oh yeah, there's good stuff over here, but you're going unknowingly into a place where you will experience that instant gratification. You'll be, I would say, for a lack of a better term, kind of coddled. And you're in a space that it is very temporary and very short term, that it's like, okay, great, I found my spot. But have you vetted that community? Have you vetted those individuals that you're trusting with helping you, shepherding you, walking with you along that growth journey that you're on? So even when you make that decision to move forward, and you're like, you know what, I've reached a certain peak, it's time for me to go to my next level. I don't know where to turn, who's going to help me with this. You can't just latch on to the first group or person that you see. There's still work to be done there, because for that next level, even though you don't know what it looks like, you do still need to vet who will be guiding you there, and be aware of the fact that because you don't know what that next level looks like, you do have to go through a vetting process of sorts, and be vigilant and pay attention to whether or not that group or people or community has your best interest at heart, and make sure that it's the right fit for where you're trying to go. And that's not always going to happen overnight. It may not
Mhm.
always be one conversation. I like that you highlighted that you had 6 or 7 different conversations. And I'm sure that this was over the course of some amount of time, not just like, oh, yeah, I decided in a weekend. But
Yeah.
building that rapport and trust, and taking small pieces back, small tidbits back to
Mhm.
think about, mull over, to help to get to a sound decision that will ultimately be in your best interest and beneficial from you on down, going into the generations coming from you. And also impacting how you're showing up in the world to help other people that are not necessarily a part of your bloodline, but can still be just as heavily impacted.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, while you've been working through these things, what was the toughest decision that you've had to make in your growth journey, and how did that decision propel you forward?
Ooh. I would have to say, and I've actually said this to a few people, the toughest decision and the toughest and best decision I've ever made was not taking my own life. That
Mm.
was the toughest but best decision I ever made. I did get to a point where I was so depressed, low self esteem, um, that I didn't, and the verbal abuse that I was getting on a daily basis, that I didn't want to continue. I didn't want to continue at all. And I could remember clear as day opening that third floor window thinking, okay, if I can't land on that awning because I'll survive. So I need to jump a little bit this way. I know it's not funny to laugh at. It's not a comedic, something that's to take lightly. Um, and then thinking like, no, okay, maybe I've seen it on TV where they cut hair and whatnot, and that was tough. I remember going to school the next day. I forgot. I don't remember if I was in fifth, sixth, or seventh grade, but I remember my science teacher that day decided not to teach science, decided to talk about life, and started saying that, don't make a permanent decision off a temporary situation, because life is so precious. Life is so precious, and everything that's going on, this too shall pass.
Mm.
And I remember thinking like, oh wow, like okay, maybe I shouldn't go through with this. And what's funny is fast forward to a few years ago, I had, um, I'll say a family friend who really was about, like, was at the verge of committing that same, was ready to take her own life, and reached out to us to say goodbye. Like, hey, you guys have been great. I'm going to do this. And my response, and I'm like, can I change your mind? No, I already made a decision. I respect you. I want to say bye. I was like, okay, have I been a good counsel to you? Well, yes, you've been awesome. It's not you. Have I been someone that you look to and to speak to that has been encouraging you? Yes. I was like, okay, but do you realize had I made the decision you're about to make, I would not have been here to be that person for you. So I'm like, so you're looking at now and you have no idea what 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, 20 years is going to look like. Because had I looked at that moment back when I was in seventh grade, I couldn't speak to you now in the year 2000, whatever, and be able to encourage you. So don't make a permanent decision off of a temporary situation. So that was the biggest, hardest, and best decision I ever had to make, was choosing to live, and using my experience and using my trauma to help others to choose to live. And I'm not talking about choosing to live just in a matter of taking your own life, but choosing to live the life that you can live, the life that you should live. You're not meant to live in stress and constant worry and constant pain. Like, you are meant to live a full life of happiness and to be able to live life abundantly. But in order to do that, you have to let go of your past. So yeah, that was the hardest and best decision I ever made. And I fully understand why some people say that the things you don't go through in life is not for yourself, it's for other people. Because that young lady's still here today. Matter of fact, graduated college and living a great life. And I had to go back and say, okay, so that's why I went through that. It was never for me. It was for
Mm.
her, and it's for anybody else I speak to. I didn't even know was going through that thought, but I'm willing to share my story if it means that it's gonna save just one more person. So yeah, hardest but best decision I've ever had to make throughout this whole journey.
That is so powerful. And I, for one, as I'm sure with many others, am glad that you didn't make that decision. And just the realization that you came to with that situation, it wasn't for you and I'm sure that there were years amassed between when you went through that situation and when it everything came full circle that you had
Yeah.
to use that to save someone else's life and for someone else. And then even after that incident occurred, the way that you are able to reshare again, and there's literally no telling how many lives you're impacting with what you went through, the situation where you realize that it wasn't for you, and then sharing beyond that with people who your voice will reach, that your videos will reach, your speeches will reach, but they may never have the opportunity to thank you in person. So that's just so powerful, and that's really awe-inspiring. The way that things that we may have buried, or things that have happened in our past, when we begin to open up and share those things, the impact, it reminds me of there's always like an inspo message with the droplet going onto the water and how the rings go out.
Yep.
That was exactly the image that popped into my head as you were sharing that story with us, because I mean, eventually there was that one incident for you that literally it was just one drop in a bucket, and it was just like at this point, even though it's a very impactful moment, what is it, like a core memory, that one drop had a ripple effect over the course of time that, I mean, it's as vast as whatever the water source is. And
Hmm.
even any of the like microcurrent vibrations from there, once that ripple effect reaches land, that's the part where we stop seeing it. That doesn't mean that energy stops. That doesn't
Right.
mean that the ants underground can't feel that same ripple effect. And
Yep.
so I'm just like, wow, I never thought of that before until you shared what you just said. And just thinking about how, like, literally the sky's the limit when we
Yep.
allow ourselves to be used, when we use that strength in vulnerability, and how that can like you're literally transferring your energy, your strength to other people through that vulnerability, and being able to show like, hey, look, this is who I am and who I've become. You can look, I'm gonna help pull you up where
Mhm.
you may where we may or may not have had someone else to help to pull us up. So that's mad powerful.
No,
And
absolutely.
with all of these things that have you've learned through, grown through over the years, and the different challenges that you conquered and overcome, how I'm thinking that all of these things have gone into developing this Diamond Cut Man mission. So, what's on the horizon for you in your Diamond Cut Man program and the mission that you're on to use all of these experiences to help other men? What's on the forefront for you there?
Oh, absolutely. Launching a community for men to come in and have that safe space, be able to speak, and have that safe space, and also support to be able to get through whatever it is they're going through. I do have a free 30-day journal that I send out to men for free that they can download and be able to just start that process and just start writing down your thoughts and writing down the things that you're going through and writing down the experiences that you've dealt with. The diamond, if a man does decide to go through with the full program, it is a 90 days coaching program where mainly focused on dealing with the trauma that you may or may not know that is impacting your growth, that may or may not know that's impacting your relationship, that you may or may not know that's impacting your career goals, etc. Because there are things that's happened to us that shape the way we think that we never even tied to a traumatic experience that happened. And it may be a small traumatic experience or a big traumatic experience. And honestly, by the end of the coaching program, the goal of that Diamond Cup man is to just become a man who embraces authenticity, a man who shows strength and vulnerability. He leads with integrity and able to have a lion like leadership, but with lamb like compassion. Because we're known to be tough, we're known to be strong, we're known to just society just want to see that manly aspect of us, but we do have compassion within us as well. But first, we have to have compassion with ourselves and to forgive ourselves for the things that we went through in order to be able to move forward. So, looking to grow that community and it's free to join the community. The only paid portion is if anybody wants actual one-on-one coaching, but I want to open it up a free community for all men to have that safe space to be able to open up, because the suicide rates among men, even though it's not talked about, is very high. It's pretty high.
That's dope. So you guys hear that as a freebie. Make sure, you know, I'm going to have it for you in the show notes. That link is right below in these show notes for you. And make sure that you go ahead and copy, paste that, send it over to any of the men in your life that may need it, even if you don't think they need it. The people that you're close to, go ahead, send it out just in case. Like you said, there are so many things that are turned inward that are like held close, held secret, that you may not even know about, whether you are that safe space or that trusted source or not. Go ahead and share that link, and make sure that you spread the word. There's only so much that us ladies, there's only so much that we can do. And part of relinquishing that control is being part of being wise counsel. Make sure that you're not referring somebody to some foolishness. All right. So the same way that I have vetted folks who are coming in and who I'm bringing to you each week, go ahead and be that person for someone else. And I put on my stamp of approval. Y'all already know. I'm like, look, I give you your money back if it's whack. All right. Because I'm making sure that as part of being wise counsel to all of you, that I'm making sure that you are being taught, coached, inspired by people who are thoroughly vetted, who have success in this, and also people who are I'm bringing you whole, healthy individuals. Because, I mean, if you're not on that, can they really help us? Remember, we're not looking for that temporary feel good. We are looking for lasting change and true transformation. And so, Shad, thank you so much for coming on with us today. I so appreciate you. I am hugging you from afar, and I can't wait until we all get together again. Thank you for speaking to the audience today. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and everybody can go, including your old self. Thank you.